Welcome into Transfer Portal Tracker. I am Emily Proud. A reminder to hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. The spring transfer portal window officially closes tonight at midnight, marking the end of this cycle. That means that players can no longer enter, but there is no deadline on decisions, which means the news keeps coming. And along those lines, let's show you what's on tap for today's show. We start off with our transfer portal insider, Matt Zenit, giving us the latest buzz. Plus, Carl Reed and Smoke Dixon give us some winners and losers from the spring transfer portal window. And the Canes have been awfully busy this month. Gaby Urrutia of Inside the U recaps some big-time additions. But first, let's welcome on 24/7 Sports National College football reporter Matt Zenitz. As soon as we went off air yesterday, the news, as I said, it just keeps on coming. And we got another transfer portal addition from Alabama, cornerback Peyton Woodyard, who, if you remember the name, it's because, he was part of this most recent class coming in as an early enrollee. Now what? What's the latest you're hearing on him?
So right away, Oregon came up both on the end of Chris Hummer, who does a great job teaming up with me, being on top of everything transfer portal-wise, and then for myself also, just as a clear team to keep an eye on. And that's continued to be the case really during the course of the last, I guess, close to 24 hours since Peyton went into the portal. He is, based on the latest information that I have, currently expected to visit Oregon this weekend. And if you were putting betting odds on it right now, I'll just say Oregon would be deserving of far and away the best odds at this point to land Peyton, who is a California native, class of 2024, top 115 overall, great recruit, and may soon be a member of the Oregon Ducks.
All right, this is a good time to remind people that during the spring transfer portal window, SEC players cannot transfer to other SEC schools. So all my fans of SEC programs hoping to get him, sorry, just not going to happen this cycle. Oregon, though, will keep an eye on him. Elsewhere in secondary positions, I feel like we all are looking for an update on former Colorado standout Cormani McClain. It seems like things have been pretty quiet. I know at one point you reported that there were some teams maybe reluctant to pursue him. What are you hearing as far as his recruitment?
Honestly, it's hard to get great information on. I would love to give you like a full rundown of the top potential fits or most likely landing spots, but it really is hard to identify just what even the most likely next step is for him right now. So one of the interesting developments for Cormani in the last couple of days, he did sign on with an agency yesterday, and they will now help him through the portal process and identifying next school. But it really has been limited in terms of information of substance with Cormani. He put out an initial list of schools that he was interested in and that he said had interest when he first went into the portal. Hey, I've since heard that most of those schools are not going to be involved in pursuing him. That there are some like Memphis that have come up that it seems like that there could be mutual interest there. Mississippi State's come up a little bit, even though there's nothing locked in as far as a visit at this point. But this continues to be a tough one to get a great read on.
Yeah, and it's not just that there's a lack of information. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but it doesn't sound like he's been visiting a lot of places either. I mean, where has he been?
I don't know if he's been anywhere at this point. Yeah. I mean, maybe he took a secret visit that I'm unaware of, but I don't even know if he's taken a single visit at this point.
Yeah, that is pretty surprising, considering he is a former five-star and was highly recruited coming out of high school. But I guess we'll continue to track that news in the transfer portal. It seems like we learn something every new iteration of going through a transfer portal cycle, and there's a lot of adjustments that come with it too. But just kind of to tie a bow on this, what's your biggest takeaway from this cycle?
The biggest piece of feedback that I've gotten from the coaching side, so this is the part of it that immediately comes to mind for me, and just had a conversation with somebody at a prominent school last night about this, is just the lack of structure and the need for change when it comes to rules, regulations, guardrails, combination of all of that stuff. So this is obviously becoming more and more of an NFL model in terms of the free agency component of it. The biggest difference, when it comes to the NFL, and this is a huge gripe for people in the coaching world, and the same thing for those in the personnel space. First of all, the lack of a salary cap, so it takes away from having any sort of level playing field to a certain degree, where some schools obviously have a certain amount that they're able to work with, and then other schools that don't have anywhere near that same amount that they're going to be able to work with. And then also you have a system where with the NFL, when there's an agreement with the player, there's a contract signed, and a team knows that they have player for X amount of time unless they decide to move on. With college, that's not the case, and you are seeing some examples of players that are hopping into the portal cycle after cycle and have the ability to do that based on the flawed system, and yes, purposely included the word flawed, the flawed system that's in place right now, that it's contributed to not only a number of players, a high quantity in terms of portal entrance, but at the same time, you've seen players that transfer during the winter that have now gone back into the portal a few months later. And then to go along with that, we talked about Peyton Woodyard earlier. You have other examples like Jason Zandamela of class of 2024 recruits that a few months after signing and after arriving to campus are now already in the transfer portal as well. And as I'm sure everyone can imagine, that is definitely a source of frustration for people around the college football space who are hopeful of change at some point in the near future.
Yeah, I'm sure when you're talking to them about, getting information, they just they want to vent too. They're hoping that somehow Matt Zenitz can create some change in this space. Definitely a lot of frustration on their parts. I wouldn't call it frustration on our parts, but it's just a lot to keep up with. We always talk about these big time flips that come around signing day. They're shocking. Well, that player that flipped could then enter the transfer portal like 2 weeks later and then go back to the school they originally were committed to. So yeah, it's a crazy cycle, but we appreciate all of your hard work so far. I know the work is not done yet, as decisions still need to be made, but thank you for being here, and thank you for all your contributions. You can read more of his work on 247sports.com. That is where you get all the info from all of our insiders. You can also track how your favorite team is doing in the portal, where they rank. You can find that under the Transfer Portal tab. Well, speaking of a team who is hot in the portal right now, that is Miami, and that is where we go next, welcoming Gaby Urrutia of Inside the U. Gaby, so excited to hear from you. We had to have you on this show. We're talking transfer portal, and Miami has been awfully hot lately. Let's start with Oregon State running back transfer coming in Damian Martinez. What impact can he make for the U this fall?
And he can make a huge impact right away, Emily. Damian Martinez, Miami got him out of Oregon State. He was one of their top overall targets when they went into this transfer portal session. He's a big deal. Miami going out and getting the top available running back in this spring window. It was a mission accomplished. I mean, Damian Martinez was kind of their guy from the jump. He's who they sort of circled at the top of their board, and they get him. I mean, they wanted to surround Cam Ward with some firepower. You get a big-time tailback in Damian Martinez to go along with the big-time quarterback, and surrounding him with weapons on the outside. They have two top receivers in Xavier Restrepo and Jacoby George returning. So, they wanted to get a big-time tailback into that backfield, and they certainly did with Damian Martinez.
He's the most recent addition, but Miami has been consistently adding talent through the transfer portal this entire spring window. They've, added a lot of impact transfers just overall. You mentioned Cam Ward as one of them, really getting the ball rolling early on in the spring. But who stands out to you as some other guys that are coming in for the first time and that we'll see a lot of this fall?
Yeah, Miami just went out and got guys like Sam Brown, the Houston wide receiver. I mean, he just went 815 yards. This past fall for the Cougars. He's very familiar with Shannon Dawson's offense and, everything that the Cougars kind of did on offense, what Miami's play caller does. So Miami's extremely excited about getting Sam Brown. They went out to Louisville, got Jalen Alderman, a linebacker who's very familiar with Derek Nicholson. Derek Nicholson, Miami's linebackers coach and co-defensive coordinator, is the man who recruited him to Louisville. coming out of the high school level. So Miami's extremely excited about Jalen Alderman as a guy who started 14 games for the ACC runner-up. So a lot of experience, a lot of depth, value at that linebacker spot. They have two in Kiko Mawanoa and Wesley Basaint that are really good, that they're extremely excited about. And Jalen Alderman, certainly, makes that room really, really strong. They also go out and get Deani Hill, a cornerback out of Marshall, who, again, staff ties Chevis Jackson, the cornerbacks coach and safeties coach, and defensive coordinator Lance Guidry were both at Marshall, recruited Deani Hill to Marshall. He's now at Miami. So Miami also gets some additional, experience in the secondary. Deani Hill started 9 games last year for the Thundering Herd, and a lot of different schools were after him as a transfer. Lands at Miami. So really 4 big-time additions over a span of 24 hours. Miami got red hot there for over the weekend in the transfer portal. They're extremely excited about everything that they added.
That's what's so impressive about this haul, is that the spring window is usually to add in some depth pieces, but it sounds like Miami got some great impact guys that can do a lot for them early on. Matt Zenitz, who was just on the show, was also on our show yesterday, and he pointed out that he thinks that Miami might not be done with this spring transfer portal window and could add a few more guys. So what can you tell us about potential targets?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that Miami would still like to get done in this transfer window. A guy like Tyler Barron, the Tennessee, Louisville, he was just talking about the bouncing back and forth of the transfer windows. I mean, Tyler Barron's a guy that, did something similar. He's in the portal again. Miami's, they want to get him. Jason Taylor's extremely high on, this veteran pass rusher. He had his best year in 2023 for the Vols. Miami's definitely in the thick of that one. They just had him on campus alongside the 4 others that we mentioned, who all ended up committing to Miami. So Tyler Barron's another one that Miami would love to add. They also got Simeon Barrow currently on campus, the Michigan State defensive tackle, who, again, LSU, Missouri, potentially some others are also involved with. So Miami would, of course, would like to add some meat, in the middle of that defensive, that defensive tackle room, just like everyone else. It seems like all the big-time programs are all in the thick of it for some of these big-time names. So, I think Barrow and Tyler Barron are probably 2 of the most that Miami would like to add right now.
All right, those are 2 defensive linemen. What are maybe some other positions of need for Miami?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different positions that Miami could continue to explore. They have an opening on the offensive line at left guard. I think if the right option emerged, someone with experience, someone who can potentially get the job done, I think that they would explore that. So definitely not ruling out an offensive lineman, at least, again, exploring that option. I think a safety is potentially on the table. And truthfully, maybe another defensive tackle. Like, again, they would like to add Barrow if they could potentially find a second one to kind of pair alongside him or to just kind of get involved with. I think Miami's always looking to add depth and talent on that defensive line. So those are just a few spots where I could see Miami just continuing to explore some options.
Gaby, thank you so much. Appreciate you updating us on everything that is happening down in Miami, because it is a lot. For more transfer portal news and to read up on the additions that we discussed, you can head to Inside the U. If you're like me and you love a good podcast, I just want to shout this out real quick. Gaby and David Lake, they have one that is spectacular, a must listen, called Through the Smoke. You can find that at InsideTheU.com. We talked about the success of Miami, but not everybody had a successful transfer portal window. So it's that time of the show that we look at maybe some winners and some losers of this transfer portal cycle. And for that, we welcome on our friends and National College Football reporters Carl Reed and Smoke Dixon. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start with Carl. Who is a winner for you this cycle?
The winner for me, I'm going to continue the trend, is the University of Miami. Mario Cristobal had big needs offensively. He addressed them. Cam Ward, the jewel of the transfer portal, no matter what side it was on. Cam was a guy that was coveted by multiple schools as their starting quarterback. Flirted with the idea of going into the National Football League. Mario was able to come in and get the deal closed, and no matter how anybody feels about it, he's been a leader. He's led them throughout spring ball. Unbelievable addition, and should lift their offense up immediately. Obviously, adding Damian Martinez, the running back from Oregon State, also takes the offense to another level, in addition to guys like Sam Brown from the University of Houston. Super Mario has done his thing. He's been a legendary recruiter for a very long time. Everybody knows about his relationships. Has always been great at building and developing offensive linemen and getting his team to play very tough defensively. Now, with those weapons on the offensive side of the ball, Miami finally has the pieces that they need on that side to match what they've been in the past defensively and with the offensive line. I'm excited to see what the Miami Hurricanes put out on the field this season.
McCall, man, great answer. But I'm shocked that you didn't go with your squad. I'm going to go with Colorado. And what they did was an awesome job in the spring window of understanding what the spring window is. A chance to supplement your team with depth, but also get just a fresh air of young players, but also some veteran guys too. So what they did, they went through and they combed through their depth chart and understood players that they were going to lose, but also replaced them with depth, but better at that position. We'll start out at the running back position. When they got the flip from Mississippi State, big, thick running back with the ability to get down here and run, and that's Rashad Ingles. That guy averaged 5 yards per carry, and he's a factor in the red zone. Decided to get some youth, Dallin Hayden. Now, as a freshman, he did an awesome job of getting 5 yards per carry, but he left Ohio State with the understanding that he needs a fresh air and somewhere he need to go to get developed more and get the opportunity to play. Now, what they did, they probably listened to me a little bit on the transfer portal show. They went and got young offensive linemen with Zach Owens from Clemson and Peyton Kirkland, 2 massive offensive linemen with the ability to get developed within their program, understand what their culture is, and get better along the line. So when they do have those older guys leave out in the portal, they'll have those young, massive people movers that come in. And they didn't finish. They went on defense. And they understood what they needed on defense. They needed an interior guy to get that pass rush, getting upfield and being disruptive. And they got that with Rayon Buell, a guy out of Ohio that had 4.5 sacks, a highly disruptive guy. Now they understood that they need to get some pressure on the edge. So they went out the pit and got my man, Dayon Hayes. 29 hurries, 4.5 sacks, a guy that can set the edge in terms of and run, but also has the ability to bend and be an aggressive pass rusher with the speed, the power. But also, when we talked about it, they needed some help in the secondary. So they get down to Auburn, got Colton Hood, a young guy that needs some time on task. You see all the traits that you're looking for in terms of twitchiness, speed, coverage ability. But the more you get that guy going and give Travis a little time off, and because he's playing both ways, and get a third corner in there to help him out. Now, what do you need else in the middle? You need a guy in the middle. Akai Hill Green. That guy's played a ton of football. He come in, he's a veteran, set the tone, be able to make all the calls, and he has the experience to get them to where they need to go. So they fixed it on defense and offense with youthfulness, but experience with guys that can go in, line up, and play, but also have some development down the line.
I love that you pointed all of that out, because I feel like sometimes Colorado gets more headlines for the guys that they lose, but they brought in 34 players in this cycle and a lot of impact guys that we'll be seeing a lot of this fall. So I appreciate you laying all that out. Both great picks. I hate to do this, though. It's winners and losers, which means that we got to point out some losers here. Smoke, you're shaking your head, but I'm going to make you go first. Who is a portal loser this cycle?
Well, Emily, the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. So back in December, my loser, Iowa. They lost Caden Proctor in the spring. And they lost it both ways. They lost it in the space of Caden Proctor figuring out the loophole of bouncing back twice and getting real nice and going back to the school that he started. But when you're Iowa and you're sitting there and you have one of the top premier players at that position, at the left tackle position, that's one of the positions that when you have one that come in, you understand that he's going to be a placemaker. And he's going to be able to sit there for 3 years and be able to go into the NFL draft and protect your blind side. And when you lose that, regardless of where it is, that's a hole that you have missed. So Iowa missed on the understanding how to secure the NIL bag to one of the prominent players, but also lost out on one of the better players in college right now.
Smoke, that's a big loss for the University of Iowa, no doubt. But I'm going to tell you who my loser is. The group of 5 as a whole. Group of 5 coaches are out on the road recruiting right now, Smoke and Emily, and they're going into high schools and they're talking to people, and they absolutely positively know they are recruiting players that are going to ultimately end up on somebody else's team. How do you feel right now being a group of 5 coach, knowing anytime one of your guys is first team or second team all conference, somebody is going to come in there with a bigger bag. They're going to spend more money. They're going to go after your guys. Guys are ending spring games and getting in the portal. Guys are being enticed by other schools. Every Power 5 school right now has a board of group of 5 and FCS players on their wall right now, and they are evaluating and scouting your team to take your best player. Guys like Trey Moore, who left UTSA to go to Texas. Guys like Caden Wooler, going to Oklahoma from Miami of Ohio. Marcus Harris, C.J. Daniels, Joey Slackman going to Cal, LSU in Florida. Group of 5 schools right now in this day and age have almost no opportunity to keep the players that they recruit, identify, and develop, because they're going to always end up leaving because the money is becoming too big at the Power 5 level and they want their piece of the pie. So the biggest losers for me in the transfer portal era are the group of 5 coaches, because they're out right now working their butts off in recruiting for players that they will never be able to retain.
Carl, I obviously want your thoughts on the proposed Group of 5 playoff, but you mentioned the recruiting and walking into high schools and what's the pitch. How do you think just the proposed idea of creating a G5 playoff affects their ability to recruit?
I don't think it changes what they can do in recruiting, but I do think that it helps them be competitive in the season. We have to stop acting like it's the same thing. The MAC is not playing the same game that the Big Ten is playing. The Sun Belt Conference is not playing the same game that the SEC is playing, and the gap is growing wider because of NIL and the transfer portal. I definitely think the Group of 5 needs their own playoff that's away from the power conferences.
Man, Carl, that great answer. But all you're doing is enticing those guys to play more games to get better. So now all they're doing is upping their development to go off to the Big Ten, SEC, and other conferences that's going to pick them up. I just believe that at the end of the day, what we're looking at is it's a broken system. Because like you said, going out on the road and doing your due diligence of getting the players in your building and you developing them, you're never going to see those guys get to the level that you want them to. And you're going to end up just losing them all out. So playoffs or no playoffs, the max in is no more, because those Tuesday games you can't even watch anymore. They're becoming unwatchable because the really good players are leaving.
I'd like to think there's maybe some trickle-down effect, though. There's rosters that need to be filled out, so maybe some Power 5. You're shaking your head. You're moving down to the Group of 5. Carl, have you seen that at all?
Well, there are going to always be some players at the Power 5 level that don't play that end up having to transfer down and play. But as soon as they come down and fix their game, they just made the rule that you can transfer limited. So they try to jump right back up. It's just a revolving door. I don't understand how Group of 5 coaches are sleeping at night. I know most of them aren't because of the calls that I get. And so it's got to be a really tough time to be a coach at that level right now.
Yeah, we also saw a handful of Group of 5 coaches move to the Power 5 level in different roles, specifically at the University of Alabama. They have a lot of former G5 coaches on that roster. Thank you both so much for giving us some winners and losers of this transfer portal cycle. As always, you can check out more of their work right here on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Make sure that you are subscribed, turn on those alerts so you don't miss a thing. I mentioned alerts because, in case you forgot, we are #CommitHQ here at 24/7 Sports, and we have a lot of big-time decisions coming up on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel over the next few weeks, like this guy. How about top 247 offensive tackle Avery Gatch? His commitment is set for this Friday, May 3rd at 3:15 Eastern. His top schools, you see him there, Ohio State, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Then, next weekend, on Saturday, May 11th, top 247 corner Kobe Sellers will be making his college choice live at 2 o'clock Central. We talked with Colin Kennedy yesterday about his interest in the Sooners, so we know about that, but he's also considering Texas and Texas A&M. This was Transfer Portal Tracker. Thanks so much for watching.